How do we know who we are? We might be one breath away from enlightenment or death, or who knows. The uncertainty is great. It just keeps it wide open. When I was born, I donned a spacesuit for living on this plane. It was this body. This is my spacesuit. And it had a steering mechanism, my prefrontal lobes, and all the brain motors coordinating stuff. And just like those Rusty Schweigert and the others that go to the moon and they wear their uniforms and they learn how to grab things and lift things, so I did that. I learned my prehensile capacities. And I got rewarded. You get little stars and kisses and all kinds of things when you learn how to use your spacesuit. And you get really good at it. You get so good at using your spacesuit that you can't differentiate yourself from your spacesuit anymore. And everybody comes up and says, what a nice suit. And you're constantly looking into other people's eyes to find out if you're really wearing a nice spacesuit. It's what I call somebody training. When you're born, you go into somebody training because your parents know who they are, and they're going to make you somebody too. My parents were very intent on making me somebody. They wanted me to achieve, be responsible, be healthy, be successful, bring pride to them, and if it didn't interfere with any of those, I should be happy. The problem that I experienced, though, was that the suit that I was wearing, it was like you're in one of these suits that doesn't quite fit, and you're a little uncomfortable, and you're constantly trying to readjust yourself. But everybody kept saying, beautiful suit, really impressive suit. You must be very happy. But I wasn't. Now, if everybody you look into their eyes and they tell you you're happy and you're not because the suit feels so weird, what do you conclude? I felt when everybody said what a nice suit I was wearing that I must be sick. So I went to an analyst. Now, he was wearing another kind of weird suit. See? What he did was he said that for a pittance, he would teach me how to wear his suit instead of my suit. So I learned how to wear his suit, which had even more status more people said beautiful suit. And I really wasn't very happy in that suit either. And you walk down the street and you're somebody. You say, you know who you are. You dress like somebody. Your face looks like somebody. Everything is somebody. Everybody is reinforcing their structure of the universe over and over again. And they meet like two huge things meeting. This is who I am. This is who you are. And we enter in these conspiracies. I'll make believe you are who you think you are. If you make believe I am who I think I am, and we just kind of bump against each other. You can see them in everybody. Everybody's busy being somebody. Now, in our culture, we've been trained for individual differences to stand out. So you look at each person, immediate hit is brighter, dumber, older, younger, richer, poorer, and we make all these dimensional distinctions, put them in categories, and treat them that way. And we get so that we only see others as separate from ourselves in the ways in which they're separate. And one of the dramatic characteristics of the psychedelic experience is being with another person and suddenly seeing the ways in which they are like you, not different from you. I think that the spiritual trip at this moment is not necessarily a cave in the Himalayas, but it's in relation to the technology that's existing. It's relation to where we're at. It's in relation to issues like pollution and political interests and activism and stuff like that. I think that's all part of one package now. The game is to be where you are, be it honestly and as consciously as you know how. When we were all with Maharaji, I decided, well, he keeps saying, tell the truth and don't get angry. But the truth is, I am angry. And I've spent so long being phony, like I love everyone. See, all the time my heart is full of anger. Okay? Oh, you're on this. Oh, yes, I love you.
And all the time I'm thinking, I wish such hell. And that hypocrisy was driving me up the walls. And I thought, gee, he said to tell the truth. I think for a change, I'll tell the truth. So people would come into my room, and I would say, get the hell out of this room, you lazy, you're too nice, you nauseate me.
If I don't get what I want, that's as interesting as if I get it, it turns out. Did you ever notice that? All this, I need you. Well, you're not getting me. Oh, ta-da! You know, and then, isn't that interesting? And then you grow from that. When you begin to realize suffering is grace, you can't believe it. You think you're cheating. It doesn't mean having no preferences. It means not being attached to your preferences. That's the one, if you don't get what you want, you don't get what you want. How interesting. Because the interesting process is the transformation, not getting what you want all the time.
When I got out of my somebodyness, which was very cramped, I mean, it was like a prison to me. I didn't want to go back to prison. It's like you go out and you smell the air, and then they say, okay, chemicals wearing off, back into prison. And you don't want to go. You say, no, but you go anyway. And you go back into your suit, and you feel weird again. Now, because you know that that isn't who you are, but you're caught in it. So that starts quite a journey, because my object was to get out of my suit. It was to get out of my physical, psychological identities, which felt extremely limited. And I would get incredibly free and high and clear and in love. And I'd sit in the temple or in meditation, and I would get so high. Light was pouring out of my head. I was some combination of the pure mind of the Buddha and the heart of the Christ, which for a Jewish boy is not bad, you know. And I was really like, I'd be out there, you know, and I'd come back to the States, and I'd go to visit the family. And my father would say a simple thing like, you got a job. And I'd crash. And I'd say, can't go home, brings me down. I began to have a whole list of things that brought me down. Cities brought me down. Money brought me down. Politics brought me down. But the only thing that brings you down is your own mind. It's not the city. The city's just sitting itself. It's being essence city. What are you getting so upset about? It's your reaction to the city that's what's doing it to you. And I've found myself, interestingly enough, wearing a new kind of a suit. It was like, I'm very high. Don't get near me. Now, because I had felt so trapped by my body and my personality and was so unhappy in all of that, my job, it seemed, was to push away those things. And I tried a number of techniques like renunciation and figured if I just renounced all of it enough, it would go away. All I did was end up a horny celibate. It's like giving up smoking, like I haven't smoked in 4 years, 2 months, 3 days, and 22 minutes. A person will die from non-smoking. It didn't work. Because if you push something away, it still got you. You're busy not doing it.
Every time you push anything away, it's still there. The pile under the rug gets very big. Yeah. So it gets so that your downs are actually far out without being masochistic. Your downs turn out to be more interesting than your highs after a while. Because they're showing you where you aren't. Like I get into a depression. Or like I got angry tonight. I was fascinated by that. Far out. Look at how I came in being a holy man. I lost my cool. Far out. Isn't that great?
It's fascinating. You go out in the woods to look at trees. You don't say, that pinyon isn't as good as that redwood. You say, a pinyon. A redwood. You see a gnarled tree and you say, look at the beauty of that. You see a straight tree, you say, look at the beauty of that. You come back with humans. You never do that. If she were only a little, if he could only, I like them best when they're, instead of, look at that. An absolute essence slimy liar.
somebody says something and it hurts you, and then you feel hurt. They did what they did because that's what they did. That's their problem. You reacted the way you reacted because that's the way you reacted. That's your problem. To interpret that your feeling is their problem is when you start to feel you have to tell them that you were hurt by what they said. The other thing is, if I'm hurt by what you say, that's something for me to work with. I acknowledge it and then I work with it. I don't have to get them to not do the thing because they're just being like a tree. They're just phenomena happening. It is said in the spiritual literature that righteousness and being right is one of the last gates to the inner temple. It's one of the last obstacles to getting in the inner temple. And that one of the problems of spiritual work is ending up being a good yogi. You are a really good yogi. You know all the shlokas, you know all the positions, you do it all perfectly right. You are really righteous and good, but you're not free. And it's called the golden chain, the chain of righteousness. When you want to become free, then your righteousness and your anger are much less interesting than they used to be. You less feel comfortable just sitting in your righteousness than you do in throwing it back into the pot in order to become free.
Years back when I started to do this meditation 12 years ago, I could go off and I could have a 6-hour fantasy, a 6-hour sexual fantasy, sitting in Burma all by myself in a cell. I mean, and it was just with great detail and the subtleties of the rustle of silk and all the, you know, every little thing and the smells and the images and the shadows. And what was the rush? I wasn't going anywhere. You know, I had weeks to meditate and I'd look like I was meditating all the time and nobody knew, you know, and I would have these 6-hour things, you know. It was like having an orgy of, or I'd plan when I became famous and, you know, I mean, I'd have those things. When I became like the Buddha, what would I do, you know, and I'd have long fantasies of what I would be, how compassionate I'd be. Oh, God.
To the extent that we went into somebody training, we work out of a sort of a deprivation model, feeling like we're starving and we don't have enough and we want more, all right? So let's take love relationships. That's a good one. You fall in love with someone. That person awakens in you or allows you to touch the place in you where you are love. So you say, I am in love. And because that person did it for you, you say, I am in love with you. So you say to your connection, let's build a nest. And where will you be next Tuesday? And for the rest of every Tuesday from here on out, and where were you last night? And who are you thinking about now? And you get terribly frightened that you're going to lose your connection. Because if you lose your connection, you won't feel that feeling any longer, which you're very hooked on. You begin to open to that place in yourself where you are love, which is the same as the one that's called awareness. It's the same thing. It's a feeling where you are one with the universe and you're liquid and flowing with everything around you. Now you are experiencing in love. And then after a while you say, well, I'm going down to the store to get some tofu and veggie burgers. See? And you're at the checkout counter, you're still in love. You see, you're in this place, because you're resting in it now, and you look into the eyes of the checkout person, and there it is again. Problem. Well, now what are you going to do? Are you going to look at anybody else? It's going to get complicated. You better start wearing glasses with mirrors facing inward, because you're going to start a commune. I mean, what you're going to do sooner or later is you're going to have to let go of the model of deprivation that you've been functioning under, because as you start to rest in this other space of your being, you're going to find this peculiar feeling that you're going to start to be in love with everybody. And you obviously can't collect them all. And you get to the point where you can walk down the street and look at somebody and love them like you've never loved anybody before, and you don't have to do a thing about it.
At first you can't believe it, you see, and you just want to save them in case you want them later. So you say, like, who are you? My name's Dick. Hi, let's have dinner. Well, gee, oh God, I hate to leave you, but Then later you just go and you go down the street and you go, hi, or ooh, or oh, do you feel what I feel? And then after a while you just walk down the street and you look at your lovers and you don't have to do anything about it because you're not going to run out. As you extricate yourself from your somebodyness, from your thoughts, which are things, from your body, which is things or stuff, who you are has no time, has no space. It slowly has been dawning on me over the past 8-10 years that the game wasn't to be high, the game was to be free. And the free meant you couldn't push anything away and you couldn't grab at anything. There was nowhere to stand. And there was nowhere not to stand. And that all the things I'd pushed away, I was going to have to take the curriculum sooner or later. That turned around the direction of my life a lot. It's interesting, when you want to get high, suffering is a real drag, and you want to avoid suffering as hard as you can. When you want to be free, you begin to hear the teachings of the Buddha about the cause of suffering being the clinging of the mind. And when something creates suffering in you, you don't go asking for it unless you're really advanced, I guess. But when the suffering comes down the pike, you don't turn away from it because you know that the only reason you're suffering is it's telling you something about the clinging of your own mind. And it's being offered to you as a gift. It's interesting that as long as you identify with your personality, the things that get you uptight are your enemies. The minute you identify with your awareness, then the things that get you uptight show you where your awareness has still sticky fingers. Most of us, with your mind, because your mind deals with polarities, you feel that if you're happy, you're not sad. And you want to be happy. So you push away that which makes you sad. But if you are going to be free, there's nothing you can turn away from or turn off. Like if you live fully in this moment, does this moment include that baby that's taking its last breath from starvation? Yeah. So are you sad? Yes. Does it include the baby taking its first breath as it comes out of its mother's womb and the joy of the beginning? Yes. So you're happy. If you are the fullness of the moment, all of it, these are all your voices. If you and I are to be free, there is nothing we can push away.
No, so let's sit up in here. Let's all sit together.
Now, in the course of the years, I've developed a lot of very strange friends. And one of them is a being named Emmanuel. And Emmanuel is interesting because Emmanuel doesn't have a body. He's a being on another plane. And I know some of you here have a difficult time accepting my friend Emmanuel. I mean, you'd accept any of my other friends, but somehow you say you have no prejudices about color, sex, religion. But bodies, somehow, if somebody doesn't have a body, you immediately don't know that you want to accept them. But I figure that's your problem, because he's my friend. And the way I figured is I'll take my teachings anywhere I can get them. Okay? I don't care whether you got a body or which kind it is. If you got a teaching, I want it. And Emmanuel said to me, when I said to him, Emmanuel, what work do I have to do now? He said, Ram Dass, you're in a school. Why don't you try taking the curriculum? He said, you took a human birth. You're so busy being holy. Why don't you try being human? Funny, I'd never thought of that. Isn't that far out?
Because somehow being human was less than perfect. Even though I intellectually knew that form is no other than formless and formless is no other than form, and I knew that the manifestation was God made manifest, everything was perfect out there except me. But original sin was going to have a last stronghold right here. I remember being drunk with Alan Watts in a Benedictine monastery one night, if you can handle that image, and Alan said, you know, the trouble with you, Dick, and you know you're going to get real truth at a moment like that. It's like 3 a.m. He says, you're too attached to emptiness.
If there's one addiction that outlasts all the others, it's the addiction to be free. It's the addiction to come up for air, to live in the light, to live with love, to be spacious, to be present, to be Because you can see that it can be fun, but you're not having it. And you feel screwed, and why should you be screwed? I mean, it's just a shift of your head you got to go through. So you get greedy, so you start to look for the methods, and you fit them in, take more time to do it, see? When I went to my guru and I said to him, Maharaji, how do I get free? He said, feed people. I said, feed people? I mean, you don't expect you go all the way to the Himalayas, you know, and you sit at the feet of the guru, and you expect him to say, come into this cave and I will give you the word, and you will sit quietly and then you will go through and you'll be free. He says, feed people. So I tried a different tack. Maharaji, how do you get enlightened? He says, serve people. Well, I heard him say it, but I figured, what does he know? He's just considering me kind of lowlife, I mean, he's not taking me seriously as a spiritual seeker, because the serious guys meditate. You understand?
Hello? Concealed boy, I've got a great idea. Between us?
I would say that souls are neither good nor evil, that actions are good and evil, motivation is good and evil, that the personalities can be good or evil, but that the essence of a being is neither good nor evil, it just is. And it has heavy stuff to work out and good stuff to work out. And you begin to look at human beings as having very dark karma at times, very heavy stuff they're carrying with them that makes them project into the world in a way that creates immense suffering for other people. And there is a point in your being where you feel this incredible compassion for the horror of that predicament, for that being. The minute you identify them with the acts that are creating the suffering, you lock them in to continuing to be who they are with your mind. So the art is to see actions as evil, but not beings.
When I do all the things that I do every day, all of it is the stuff I use to work on myself in order to increase the equanimity and to increase the compassion. It all is exercise. Your entire life is curriculum. Everything you've got right on your plate is where the stuff for your enlightenment is. It's breathtaking when you stand back and see the beauty of that design.
And you appreciate the perfection of the unfolding of it all, including the suffering. But if you just do that, which you do up here with your third eye, your heart, which is your emotional heart, your human heart, says, what kind of an insensitive, callous person are you? Because if you're only up here
Somebody trips in front of you, you say, karma. But if you're just down here, you look around and the suffering stinks, and you try to do something about it, but it is so immense, the amount of suffering, that you go to fill the dike there and it's leaking there, and you go to fill it there and it's leaking there. And where are you going to do it? What are you going to do it? You're on the good guy mailing list just like I am, you know. Which one do you write your check to?
But when I come down into my human heart, it would hurt so bad. Because the more you open up to the suffering of the universe, the easiest way to handle it is to go up. It's much harder to stay down and stay open. It's excruciatingly painful. And this is a kind of a rule of the game of spiritual practice, is the learning to trust one's own intuitive heart. Learning to trust another way of knowing other than the rational analytic process. That you start to respond to something in you that knows, even though who you think you are doesn't know it knows. It turned out intuition is perhaps where our salvation lies, where thinking is apparently where our destruction lies. We've thought our way into this peculiar situation where we're alienated from the earth and from each other, and caught in greed, which is a product of the mind. And each of us must be true to ourselves to hear what is our unique way through. Because if you get phony holy, it ends up kicking you in the butt. You've got to stay true to yourself. You can imagine a picture frame in which there is a painting of a gray cloud. But the painter made the cloud bigger than the frame that he had, she had. So what they did was they cut a little off the edge and they just put it in the frame, and so all there is gray cloudness. Because there's no edge anymore to the cloud, so all you have is gray in a frame. And you look at it and you say, what's that? But if you used either a little bigger frame or painted a little smaller cloud, you'd see that there's a little blue sky around the edge of the cloud, and you say, oh, a cloud. What do you know? All the time I thought the universe was gray. The cloud is the grief, the cloud is the self-pity, the cloud are the models, and that little blue sky becomes the space. And the meditative techniques are designed to give you that space. And the minute there's that spaciousness, it's just another cloud. You know what clouds do in the sky? They come and they go. And then there comes a period where you've just gone through enough, and the space starts to, that little blue sky starts to develop, and if you have a meditative awareness, with just that appreciation, you start to identify with the blue sky instead of the cloud. You flicker it first. And then you start to release. And then comes the time when you start to realize you'd rather be vulnerable and be hurt than be living dead in the dead sense, not in the living sense. And you can't afford it, and you start to open again, and the whole cycle starts again. Until finally, you start to fall in love with love.
when you take off your mask, it's easier for everybody else to take off that.
Yeah, I want to be a walking permission slip
Yeah,
of mask removal.
yeah. But our cultures are so mask-driven. Imagine what an office would be like with no masks.
That's the irony about masks. I've had a fascination with masks since first hanging out with you.
Yeah,
The irony is that we wear a mask because the people around will only love us if we wear this mask. But the crazy thing about that is we don't really want to hang out with people that only want the masks one. No. So we're exhausting ourselves wearing a mask for people we don't want to hang out with.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
We take off the mask, some will go,
Yep,
but the people that will be left are the people that love us and really want to hang out with us.
that's beautiful. That's just right. Just right. Everybody's playing with their stories, who they think they are. It's more fun to just witness it all, to be the environment in which this is happening.
We are living at a time where it is now beginning to be acceptable to consider the possibility that people actually die. Usually in our culture, it has been put behind doors, behind sheets, you don't talk to the children about it, you don't show anybody. We surround people that are dying with a certain kind of falseness that comes out of our own fear. When my mother, my natural mother, was dying, and I'd watch people come into the room, all the relatives and doctors and nurses saying, "You're looking better, you're doing well," and then they go out of the room and say, "She won't live the week." And I thought, how bizarre that a human being's going through one of the most profound transitions in their life, and they're surrounded completely by deception. Can you hear the pain of that? That nobody could be straight with them because everybody was too frightened. Even the rabbi, all of them, everybody. And for me, who has grown up in that culture, it was quite an experience when I started to live in India, where when somebody dies, they are put on a pallet and then carried through the streets to the burning grounds. And the death is public for everybody to see. The body is right there, it's not in a box, it's not hidden. Most people are dying at home, so that most people, as they grow up, have been in the presence of someone dying. While in our culture, an amazing number of people, even at middle age, have never been in the presence of someone dying. They have walked away from it and hidden from it. Dear friend, please know as you pass by, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, so you will be. Prepare yourself to follow me. And we are preparing ourselves. I'm one of the strange people that absolutely delights and enjoys being with people as they're dying. In fact, it is such incredible grace for me that in the morning when I know I'm going to be with such a person, I get absolutely thrilled in my body, my being. Because I know I'm going to have an opportunity to be in the presence of truth. While I wouldn't lay suffering on anybody, I have sat with people that are suffering incredibly with various kinds of cancer and other kinds of physical conditions. And I will tell you that I have watched people with egos that are like cinder blocks. They're so heavy and thick and busy with themselves and their self-pity and their anger and their And I've watched the suffering eat away and eat away and eat away and eat away. And then I've watched, it's like the shell cracks
And it's like the spirit is born. And I see them often very close to death, and they're like great, wise, spiritual beings. And I didn't think there was a chance of a snowball in hell that person was ever going to come up for air spiritually in this lifetime. Doctors are eager to take away people's pain. But from a spiritual point of view, I look and I see the way in which pain deepens compassion and pain awakens. What am I to do? A doctor's evil? Are they good? Don't you think they should ask the patient, do you want to get rid of your pain? I mean, these are all very interesting issues about how you help without getting caught in being a helper and seeing the other person as somebody that needs help and still helping them. And when I said to Emmanuel, I deal a lot with the fear of dying in this culture and death. What should I tell people? And he said, Ram Dass, tell them that death is absolutely safe. Now just put those two things together and realize what a far out line that is. Death is absolutely safe. And then he added one more image. He said, it's like taking off a tight shoe. Okay, can you hear that one? Like taking off a tight shoe. Now just imagine that you as spirit or awareness have contained yourself in an incarnation or contained it in a conceptual model of who you are and on a storyline. And then at some point you dissolve out of that, you break out of that, and there is this incredible release quality. I came into the room, and Ginny had cancer of the cervix, very painful. She was writhing in pain. It was a collaborative process with a doctor, and she and Laura all deciding about pain medicine and how long she'd live and things. And I came in and I sat down, and she usually would fight me tooth and nail because she was very much of an intellectual. But she was so weak this time, she was just writhing on the bed. So I sat down next to the bed and I just did this meditation, the Buddhist meditation that is done in cemeteries. Usually they have a bloated corpse or a fly-infested corpse or a skeleton to meditate upon. In this case, I just had this decaying body before me, and I just sat, allowing it to exist, watching all my emotional reactions to it, just allowing it to exist. And I became so peaceful, and the room was so clear. It was a purpley light in the room. And she turned to me all the time. Her body is writhing in pain, and she says to me, I've never felt such ecstasy in my life. I wouldn't rather be anywhere else than here at this moment. And she sits up and she is radiant, and she comes over and she starts to stroke my face as if she is looking at a human being, at this phenomenon of a body, and she's tenderly stroking it. And I stroke her face. And then she comes up and she kisses me. And I kiss her, and we hold each other. And it's a moment that is absolutely perfect in his presence. I mean, even the little tiny thought forms in my head, like, well, this is the next thing to necrophilia, you know, and do you know her husband is downstairs? And they're Quakers, what will they think of this? And, you know, all those little niggly-piggly things in my head were just like little lights around the edge. They didn't have much juice to them, you know, because the whole thing was just what it was. It was absolutely perfect. And then she lay back on the pillow, and we held hands for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I said, well, Jean, you understand everything I do. There's no more sense wasting time. See you around. Namaste. Namaste. And I left, and I flew down to New York that night. And the next morning at 7, I got a call. She died during the night. The more you are aware of the spiritual nature of life, the more you see the moment of death as a moment for release, for taking off the tight shoe. And the art form in dying is that at the moment of death, you are neither grabbing at life
nor pushing it away. You're neither pushing nor pulling. It's the attraction and aversion that keeps you holding to form. So to prepare for the moment of death, when the processes that go on in consciousness are a dissolving of boundaries, a speeding up of awareness, an opening and expanding, to be in that process where you don't go no and grab hold, one prepares. One prepares for the moment of death.
Sometimes seeking in itself is just an expression of lack,
Yep. Expression of lack.
an abundance of lack. So abundant.
Abundance of lack.
His Royal Majesty, the abundance of lack.
Abundance of lack.
If you had a little television receiver channel right here next to your eyes, what you're finding, what we're talking about, is planes of consciousness or channels on a television set. And most of us, most of the time in this culture, act as if we have a 1 or 2 channel set. We don't have cable. And today we're talking about cable. We're talking about acknowledging all these other channels that are floating around in the room, but we're not picking them up because we don't know how to tune our receiver. That's basically what this is about. So on the first channel, when you look at another human being, you see old, young, dark, light, fat, thin, etc. You see physical body. And if you're obsessed with your physical body, that's what you see when you look in the world, other people's physical bodies. That's the channel you're on. If you flip one channel, then you're in the psychosocial realm. You see power and you see happiness and sadness and neurosis, and it's the therapy channel. It's the social role channel. It's where there are mothers and truck drivers and all lawyers and all the different roles and identities, all the social stuff. And that's all a channel, and that's as the world turns, and it's a never-ending source of fascination. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. Most people are happy with channel 2. In channel 1 and 2, about 98% of the people you've ever known are busy with those 2 channels all the time. If you flip to the next channel, you go behind all those individual differences and you just see another soul just like you that has all that packaging that's different than you, but is just another being just like you. That's when you say, are you in there? I'm in here. How'd you get in that one? Now, our predicament is that as long as you're on channel 1 and 2, you are afraid of death. And as long as you identify with that which dies, there is always fear of death, because it's the fear of cessation of existence. Until you are rooted in these other levels of reality, that gives you a perspective about death that allows you to see death as a transformation of things which change.
Still an excitement about it, about death?
I'm excited about what happens after death. I'm not excited about death.
In your language, my incarnation has been using your incarnation for certain things. Like the first time I met you, I had probably realized that I wasn't going to get the male transmission from my father. I realized that I didn't want to take my leave of you so abruptly as it had been with my dad.
I am a projection of you. And that projection you don't want to lose. Whether it's a father figure or a spiritual blah blah or something. I see you as a spiritual entity. And you see yourself as you're a great son. I saw your soul. It's beautiful. The rest of you, but I hang out with my family, the family of saints and these guys, girls, and you're one of them. You're one of them. See, you don't see that. You don't see that.
I'm talking about the places you get to where you start to become able to live your life in a way that is harmonious with what you know on all these other planes. You literally die into service. You die into the plane of reality where you see that a starving person or a dying person or a hungry person or a frightened person is you. It's not her or him or them. You die in your separateness. The whole trip of what's good for me, what do I want, what do I need, what do I want, just becomes less interesting. And at that moment, that's where the power is. That's where the power is that changes the universe. When you can make yourself into zero, then your power is unbelievable. You are an irresistible force where there is no high and there is no low and there's no judgments and there's no opinions. There's no good and there's no bad. You merely are part of it. Don't get lost in the detail. Let your awareness go free. Just recognize what an adventure this transformation is. The appreciation of death and the spiritual journey after death is the prerequisite for living life joyfully now. Death does not have to be treated as an enemy for you to delight in life. Keeping death present in your consciousness as one of the greatest mysteries and as the moment of incredible transformation imbues this moment with added richness and energy that otherwise is used up in denial. I encourage you to make peace with death, to see it as the culminating adventure of this adventure called life. It is not an error, it is not a failure. It is taking off a tight shoe, which you have worn well. But those that find the way in the morning can gladly die in the evening, it is said in the mystical literature. So I encourage you to explore and find in your being that part of you that is on those other channels, So that when on channels 1 and 2, the World Turns series comes to its final chapters, you won't be caught in feeling loss, but rather the adventure. Because from where I'm sitting, life on this plane of reality, because I live in the world of reincarnation, of karma, of life on this plane is like being in the 4th grade. You took birth here because you had certain work to do that involves the suffering you do, the kinds of situations you found yourself in. This is your curriculum. It's not an error. Where you are now with all your neuroses and your problem, you're sitting in just the right place. Imagine that. Imagine that. Nobody made an error. And all that stuff in you of saying, if only I could be. No, this is it, including the if only. It's perfect. And then at the time you graduate and somebody says, oh, but he died so young. So if you graduate from 4th grade early, big deal, wonderful. Don't get so caught in worshiping life that you lose the balance, that realizing that the Spirit says, live life fully and richly as a partner with God, and at the same moment, don't be afraid of the next thing. Go towards it with openness and love, and not with forbidding. The way that is understood in the morning, one can gladly die in the evening.
And the fear turn to passion, yeah, baby. Never seen it. And the nightmares.
Just for a moment, sit quietly now. And just be with what is. If you're hot, be hot. If your behind hurts, let it hurt. If you're emotionally open, let yourself be emotionally open. If you're closed, be closed. If you're bored, be bored. If you're stimulated, be stimulated. If you're hungry, be hungry. Just let it all be. Ah, life, ah, death, ah, coming, ah, going, ah, joy, ah, sadness, all of it, waves that come back into the vast ocean. When you know that quality of your being, the ocean, the sky, the awareness, then you are free. And being free, you can dance the dance of life and the dance of death. May all beings in this very life be free.